Bien, bienvenue, bonjour à toutes et à tous pour ce compte-rendu du collège qui a porté aujourd'hui principalement sur le paquet tourisme et transport. Nous avons donc aujourd'hui deux conférences de presse consécutives. La première avec notre vice-présidente exécutive, Madame Vestager, et le commissaire Thierry Breton sur la logique d'ensemble du paquet et sa dimension économique. Puis, juste après, une deuxième conférence de presse avec Mesdames Kyriakides, Johansson et Valéane sur les recommandations et orientations plus spécifiques adoptées aujourd'hui par la Commission. Just a technical reminder for all of us and for you in particular, dear colleagues. As you know, we've introduced a new system to manage these press conferences. We will continue to pass you the floor. When we give you the floor, your name will turn blue on your screen. You press the speak button, you become red, you speak, and once you've asked your question, please press the button again so that we have no echo in the room. With that, Mrs. Vestager, you have the floor.
Well, thank you very much. It has been a long and very difficult spring. Key workers in healthcare and other vital services, they have worked tirelessly and selflessly to keep us safe. And we've had to make changes in the way we live our lives to help contain the spread of the virus. But we're slowly starting to emerge from a life beyond lockdown, though not yet a life beyond the coronavirus. Our thoughts are now, I think, turning to summer and maybe even further, and to the places that we love to travel. That be by the sea, the mountains, our cities, and our countryside. And those places, they are keen to welcome back travelers. Tourism is a vital part of Europe's economy. Nearly a tenth of GDP across Europe, and more than 10% in 11 member states. Millions of jobs depend on tourism, and that often in areas where there aren't many other industries. And tourism gives those regions both security and hope for all that work there. But we have to reintroduce it safely. So this is the first fundamental principles of the packages that we present today. Safety, that underlies our guidance. And that means taking gradual, careful steps to help travel restart in line with what science tells us. The second principle of our guidance is no discrimination. Different countries, of course, are in different situations, but we need to treat Europeans equally. And we all share that responsibility, governments and businesses, workers and travelers. And the most important thing is that we are open about what we know and what we don't know. This is the only way for travelers and businesses to take informed decisions. And obviously, no one should travel if feeling sick or having symptoms. We need to work together to keep travel safe as Europe starts to cross borders again. And that is why the European Commission has adopted this package of guidance and recommendations today to coordinate a safe return to travel and tourism this summer. The package is built on the joint European roadmap towards lifting containment, and it's about coordinating, not replacing the work that is being done by businesses, by national and local governments all over Europe. We've seen all kinds of innovative ideas to help tourism recover. That could be phone numbers, websites like in Greece, Germany or Austria that inform tourist businesses about how to operate safely, or the project in Lithuania and Slovakia that allows customers to buy vouchers to support their favorite pubs and restaurants. And there are bound to be more good ideas to come. So our guidance doesn't try to prescribe exactly what governments and businesses should do. Instead, it's about coordinating the steps that are taken throughout Europe so that travelers and workers can feel confident and safe. There are 4 vital areas that our guidance addresses. This is to enable tourism in a safe way this summer. Obviously, travel, border, health, and vouchers. First, we need carefully reopen borders within Europe. So we have adopted guidance for member states on a gradual, coordinated lifting of restrictions on the free movement in Europe. Second, people need, of course, to be able to travel between European countries. So we are giving guidance on how to gradually reopen transport links without risking the health of travelers or transport workers. Third, travelers and workers, they need to know that the places that tourists visit, that they are safe. Hotels, restaurants, beaches, other tourist sites, they need to be run in a way that minimizes the risk of passing on the coronavirus. So, with the help of the European Centre for Disease Prevention and Control, we've put together health and safety guidance with concrete examples that explains how to operate these services in a safe way. And finally, we do not get very far if businesses like hotels and airlines, they have gone out of business. And yet, a lot of these businesses, they are feeling an intense strain. They're caught between the need to refund cancelled trips and the reality that new bookings are still very thin on ground. The starting point here is that European consumers have a right to a cash refund if that is what they want. Full stop. Many companies have come under pressure, and this liquidity crunch would be less severe if customers accepted vouchers instead of cash refunds. So today we adopt the recommendation on how to make these vouchers more attractive for consumers to accept. At the same time, many more companies are in a situation where liquidity is very tight. On 19th of March, we adopted the temporary framework for state aid, which allows member states to provide liquidity support very quickly, very simply. And many governments now all over Europe have stepped in to help companies, also in the tourism industry, to help them mitigate the crisis with a lot of liquidity. Today's guidance can give a chance of a better season for the many Europeans whose livelihood depends on tourism, and, of course, for those who would like to travel this summer. But that will only work if each and every one of us do our part. In the last few weeks, we have all gotten used to the idea that the health of our whole community depends on our responsible choices, but also that there are different and justified recommendations in member states that we should respect. For instance, on whether and where to use face masks, or how many meters is considered a safe distance between travelers and guests in restaurants. And when we begin to travel again, we need to keep that in mind, that there are differences and they are justified. To keep that in mind, we need information, and that will be my last point. And in order to have information, the Commission is coordinating work with member states to make sure that, for instance, voluntary contract tracing apps work well and respect our privacy, and indeed that they will work across Europe. The Commission has also decided to set up a website with an interactive map so that Europeans have the confidence to travel, knowing what is happening in the countries that they are visiting. Of course, this is not going to be a normal summer, not for any of us. But when we all work together and we all do our part in the ways the Commission is setting out today, then we don't have to face a summer struck at home or a completely lost summer for the European tourist industry. Thank you. Thierry?
Thank you very much, Margrethe. Le 10 mars, dans cette salle, nous présentions, vous vous en souvenez sans doute, une nouvelle stratégie industrielle pour l'Europe. C'était 3 jours avant que l'Organisation mondiale de la santé ne déclare l'Europe le nouvel épicentre de la pandémie. 2 mois plus tard, la crise du coronavirus n'a pas diminué l'importance de mettre en œuvre cette stratégie. Au contraire, elle renforce la nécessité de définir ensemble et de bâtir une économie plus verte, plus numérique, plus résiliente. Et ça vaut évidemment aussi pour le secteur du tourisme. Les recommandations que nous présentons aujourd'hui s'inscrivent bien dans la double perspective, évidemment de la gestion de la crise, c'est la priorité absolue, et aussi de la préparation pour l'avenir. You have today a number of commissioners presenting the different elements of the package to you today, so I will try to be very brief. Millions of SMEs and family-run businesses working in accommodation, restaurants, passenger transport and travel agencies risk, Margrethe said it, bankruptcies and job losses. That's the reality of this ecosystem. They urgently need to go back to work, and they're all willing to go back to work. And we are all urgently needing them to go back to work because our entire Europe economy depends on our ability to go back to work. At the same time, us, individuals, we all need, Margrethe said it, a break, especially after this confinement. We want to enjoy summer holidays. We would like to see our families and friends, even if they live in another region, in another country. This is the case for you and for me, Margrethe. But we want to be able to do so while staying healthy and safe. Because we know that the virus will stay with us for some time. It's a difficult balance to strike. There are no simple answers, and we won't find them all today because this will be an ongoing process. Without going into the details that Margrethe already outlined, and my colleagues will explain it, I would like just to emphasize a few points. First, we cannot prescribe when country A, for example, or B decides to open up for tourism. Member states will progressively lift border restrictions. This will happen gradually and not all at once. That reflects the different situation, of course, in each of our countries, and we need to accept it. But second, we are helping member states and businesses to get prepared. Member states need to have sufficient capacities in terms of hospitals, testing, surveillance, contact tracings. The hospitality sector needs to know what health protocols they will need to comply with and what material they will need to welcome guests. This includes, of course, very practical things like cleaning and disinfecting frequently to each surface, providing masks, having spare rooms for potential contaminated guests, and so on. This will, of course, reassure tourists that they are safe and they can choose their destination within the EU, knowing that they will find the same level of precaution and preparedness, and that they will not be discriminated against wherever they come from in the EU, and that's very important. Third, financial risk is also an element that we need to mitigate, and Margrethe already mentioned it. That is the logic behind our recommendation on vouchers. as an alternative to cash reimbursement. And fourth, our citizens and businesses need information. That is why we are setting up, as Margrethe said, a dedicated website with a map combining real-time information related to tourism. The website could be called, for example, Reopening EU, because this is what we want, smoothly, but we want reopen EU. And this will also help businesses draw inspirations from innovative solutions found by others. Because ultimately, to manage this virus, Europe needs creativity. We have seen that innovation and responsibility among the many businesses that have converted, for example, their production lines to produce masks or ventilators. And we are starting to see that innovation among small restaurants and hotel owners, as well as towns all over Europe. Beyond managing what will remain a difficult 2020 summer season, we need to start preparing the future. As far as all other industrial ecosystem, the recovery will have to be green, digital, and resilient. We need to work collectively, EU institutions, the industry, regions and cities, stakeholders, on how to achieve this, learning from the crisis, paying particular attention to SMEs, anticipating new trends and consumer patterns related to it. Therefore, we will organize a European Tourism Convention to start designing the European tourism of tomorrow and start preparing a roadmap for a sustainable, innovative, and resilient European tourism ecosystem. In other words, a European Agenda for Tourism 2050. So that we will emerge, hopefully, stronger from this crisis. Thank you.
Thank you very much to both of you for your introductory remarks. We now move to questions. I'd just like to remind everybody that for this press conference, we have 8 languages available: German, English, French, Italian, Danish, and Spanish. You can select the audio channel just above the video screen in front of you. So we now move to Oliver Grimm for the first question. Oliver, we give you the floor. Go ahead.
Do you hear me?
Absolutely.
Do you hear me? Hello? Super, wonderful. Hi, Oliver Grimm with the Austrian newspaper Die Presse. Short question to Vice President Vestager. You mentioned the issue of compensation for travelers whose holidays were cancelled. We heard yesterday from your own services that about 12 member states are already in breach of the current consumer protection law, and that there might be more member states. My question is, do you intend to start infringement procedures against these countries, against these member states? And if so, would these be expedited, speeded up procedures, given that this is money that is very important to families all over Europe, families that might have lost their jobs in the meantime, and who need basically every euro to get along, and who can't actually be satisfied with a voucher for a holiday they probably couldn't take anyway. Thank you.
Well, that is exactly why we insist that each citizen have a right here, because we cannot judge on the economic situation of the individual. If you have lost your job, if this is your entire holiday budget for traveling that sits in these tickets that you cannot use anymore, then you would need to have the refund. And this is why we say this is your right, full stop. At the same time, there is a liquidity crunch. If one can afford to take a voucher or would like to support the businesses by taking a voucher, well, this can be made attractive. That can be that you, for instance, if you don't use it within a year, that you can redeem it and have cash back, that it's a very flexible voucher, that you maybe get an additional service on top of taking the voucher. There are a number of different ways to do that. If a member state wants to guarantee the voucher, obviously we stand ready to process such a scheme. As of today, where we have taken the Commission decision to this, letters will be sent to the member states who are in breach of this very fundamental principle. So these letters, they are going off as we speak.
Thank you. Thank you. We now move to David Carretta, Radio Radicale.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Thank you very much. David Carretta, Radio Radicale. Sorry to insist on the issue of passenger rights, because you are not opening an infringement procedure, if my understanding is right. You are just sending letters. So in this moment, the airlines are benefiting from state aids. My question is quite simple. Is the liquidity problem of airlines company more important than the liquidity problem of households? Because that's the impression that we received from the attitude of the European Commission and some member states if the European Commission does not act immediately on that issue. Et une deuxième question pour le commissaire Breton à propos des frontières. Il n'y a pas de recommandation scientifique du Centre européen de contrôle et prévention sur le maintien des contrôles aux frontières, ou les frontières fermées, parce qu'en fait, elles sont fermées. Et là, au début, vous avez dit il ne faut pas fermer les frontières, et maintenant, vous dites il faut les ouvrir tout doucement, progressivement, etc. Mais sur quelle base scientifique vous dites ça? Pourquoi vous dites pas simplement les frontières ne sont pas utiles pour combattre le virus? Merci.
Well, on the first question, I'm terribly sorry that I was unclear. What is starting now is the first step in the infringement procedure. It is always so that the first thing we do is that we send a letter to say, well, you're not in agreement with European legislation. And then, of course, we expect the member state to correct it immediately. Otherwise, the next steps will be taken.
Thank you.
So for the border, of course, and lifting borders, you will have a precise explanation on the policy that we will, the protocols that we will present with our colleagues Ylva Johansson in a few minutes. But you know, first we need to understand that, of course, we have the borders, and restriction on travel should first be lifted in areas with a continuously improving epidemiological situation and where sufficient capabilities are in place in terms of hospitals, as I said, testings, surveillance, and contact tracing capacities. And this is the first priority. And this is, of course, a decision of the health authorities, which are run, as you know, by member states. But secondly, and of course, we will try, of course, as we said, to coordinate all this, and my colleagues will be much more vocal on this. But the second thing I wanted to mention is that obviously you're right, in a sense. There is no border for the virus. And this is why we will always prefer to see zones, areas, regions, where, of course, we may see an evolution or different evolution of the pandemics, and then, of course, to treat these regions the way that should be treated. And this is, of course, what we will recommend more and more, to look at regions instead of looking at countries. But I repeat, decision in both cases will have been taken by local health authorities.
Merci beaucoup. Nous passons maintenant à Lotte. I'm not sure to pronounce the family name correctly. I think it's Danish.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Lotte.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I'll take the chance and ask the question in Danish for Margrethe Vestager. Margrethe, til det land, du selv kender bedst, Danmark, som har forholdsvis fine coronatal, og andre lande, som står i samme situation. Vil din anbefaling da være til et land som Danmark, at man åbner grænserne så hurtigt som overhovedet muligt? Og vil din anbefaling være, at man åbner grænserne først til nabolande, eller kunne det for eksempel også være til andre lande, der ligger længere væk, for eksempel Grækenland, som også har forholdsvis fine coronatal?
Tusind tak, Lotte. Det er jo ikke min anbefaling, det er kommissionens samlede anbefaling. Vi har drøftet det i dag på kommissionens møde, og det er, vores anbefaling er, at grænserne de bliver åbnet. Som Thierry Breton lige sagde, jamen så kan der være ting, hvor man skal sige, at vi bliver altså selvfølgelig nødt til at have kapacitet. Vi skal have vores sundhedsprotokoller på plads, så vi ved, hvordan vi gør. Men vores anbefaling er, at grænserne bliver løftet for lande, der har et nogenlunde ensartet tryk, hvor man kan forsvare det sundhedsmæssigt. Og så vidt jeg husker, helt tilbage, da grænserne blev lukket, så sagde også de danske sundhedsmyndigheder, at det ikke er den sundhedsmæssige begrundelse, der holder grænserne lukket. Så vi håber selvfølgelig, at de bliver åbnet hurtigst muligt, fordi det er en fundamental ting for europæere, at man har fri bevægelighed på tværs af grænser.
Thank you very much. We now move to Diego Velázquez.
Are you hearing me?
Not only do we hear you, we see you, Diego.
Ah, perfect. Oui, merci beaucoup. C'est Diego Velázquez du Luxembourg Avort. Une question pour Monsieur Breton. Dans votre communication et dans vos plans, on voit surtout qu'on s'occupe du tourisme. Or, ce qui me manque un peu, c'est la dimension pour les régions transfrontalières qui, depuis 2 mois, souffrent de la fermeture des frontières, des familles qui ne savent pas s'ils peuvent voir leurs proches, des travailleurs qui se font contrôler tous les jours. Et là, je me demandais pourquoi ne pas avoir insisté plus là-dessus, parce que c'est surtout là où 2 régions similaires d'un point de vue épidémiologique sont coupées l'une de l'autre, qui ont besoin l'une de l'autre au rythme quotidien, sont les plus affectés, et pourquoi ne pas avoir insisté plus sur cet élément-ci de la dimension transfrontalière européenne? Merci beaucoup.
Oui, c'est une question évidemment importante et qui dépasse bien entendu le cadre du tourisme. Donc aujourd'hui, on parle évidemment du tourisme, mais ce n'est pas du tout pour éluder la question que vous posez, qui est absolument essentielle et qui nécessite effectivement d'abord des accords bilatéraux entre les États membres eux-mêmes. Et je peux vous dire que je sais que beaucoup de discussions ont lieu en ce moment avec les chefs d'État et de gouvernement concernés par les pays dont vous parlez et dont certains que je connais bien. Donc c'est un sujet qui est un sujet essentiel pour les travailleurs frontaliers et vous voyez du reste que les choses objectivement sont en train de s'améliorer assez rapidement sur cette question spécifiquement pour les travailleurs frontaliers. Mais si vous le voulez, c'est un autre sujet. Donc en ce qui nous concerne, nous avons voulu avoir une vision globale pour le tourisme et uniquement pour le tourisme. On saura vous parler évidemment de cette question plus en détail parce qu'on a encore une fois une vision quasiment en temps réel et au jour le jour de ce qui se passe. Je peux vous dire que les choses s'améliorent et je pense qu'elles vont s'améliorer dans les semaines qui viennent pour régler ce problème qui est un problème important pour le redémarrage du marché intérieur.
Merci. Et pour rappel, Diego, la Commission a fait toute une série de propositions en ce qui concerne la levée des mesures de confinement, le passage des frontières pour les travailleurs transfrontaliers, etc. Le paquet qui est adopté aujourd'hui concerne spécifiquement l'activité touristique, mais ça ne veut pas dire que nous ne sommes pas occupés des autres dimensions du problème. Nous passons maintenant à Thomas Millerina.
Thank you very much. Thomas Millerina, Swiss Television. Some people like to go on holiday because of crowds. And some regions of Europe, certain beaches, certain islands, they actually cater to this kind of people who like big crowds. Now, I don't mean to criticize, but I was reading your documents and halfway through it, my will to go on holiday was lost if I was this kind of person. So I wonder whether you're considering this kind of psychological impact, especially for this kind of tourism, if you have something to say to this.
Well, you actually, first and foremost, you're welcome to criticize, so don't feel sorry about that. But I think you're right to say that if you travel for crowds, this will be a very difficult summer. I think still in every member state, they would say only so many people can come together until end of maybe August. You shouldn't have big gatherings. Actually, we also recommend that technology is used in order to enable people to see how to process, for instance, to a museum in a safe way, to buy your tickets beforehand so you don't have to queue at a counter, that your tickets can be processed without a professional at the museum having to come close to you, so that you have your booked entry in order to avoid crowds, and that kind of systems can be used in numerous different places in order to be able to respect distance between people. I think you're right. If you travel for crowds, this will be a difficult summer.
Nothing to add. It was very well said. We need to understand, and I know that you know that extremely well. The crisis is not over. We are just lifting now a little bit more our freedom, quote unquote, but we need to continue to live with the virus. So yes, Margrethe said it very well. This will be a summer like the others, but we hope it will be the last one this way.
Okay, thank you very much. We now move to Danielle Weber.
Yes, hello. Danielle Weber from the Luxembourgish Public Radio, 100.7. I have a follow-up to David's question in maybe a more general way. I'd like to know what's the Commission's general position on closing borders in order to fight a virus like corona? That's my first question, and I have a second one on discrimination. The Commission has been underlying that EU citizens should not be discriminated. If I understand your recommendation well, this could be the case, though, that a citizen of a country is allowed to enter another member state, but another citizen from another country is not allowed to do so. So how is this not discriminatory? Thank you.
First and foremost, our colleague Ylva Johansson, who has worked with borders now for a very long time and who have the interaction with the relevant ministers, she will be here shortly just to say that she will give you every detail. But the point to say here is that if you open the border, well, it shouldn't be just for some passport holders and not for other passport holders. Because you can have, completely the legitimate reasons to be in a country. You can have worked there, you can have your family there, you have stayed there for a very long time, even though you do not have the passport of the country. And then when borders are lifted, well, you should not be prevented from going. And as Thierry just mentioned, the virus doesn't really respect the national borders that were created by wars in previous centuries. The virus travels with people if we do not do as we are supposed to do, sanitize, keep a distance, that we're prudent. And this is much more important for people to understand. You see the approach in France with red and green zones. You see in other countries, larger countries, where regions have had a very, very awful situation with the virus, and other parts of the country has not been hit at all. So that is, I think that is the important balance to be kept here, that you should be specific about the virus and not about the old borders. And the Commission has been consistent in our guidance to member states to say, well, borders should be lifted for workers, for travelers, while at the same time, obviously, the safety and the health of people being the first and foremost concern.
Thank you. We now move to Mark Peppercorn.
Yes, good afternoon, Margrethe from Volkskrant. Mrs. Vestager, you stress a lot the principle of non-discrimination about lifting the border controls. Sorry, but what can and will the Commission do if a member state simply does this discriminate? I mean, especially because an infringement procedure will take 2 years on average. So this doesn't look to me a very viable solution. Thanks.
Well, I really do not mean to escape the question, but I don't think that it is fair when my colleague is coming here who will have to take the precise decisions on what to do on these issues. And Ilva will be here depending on the number of questions, but very, very shortly.
Indeed, you will have ample opportunity. I see that there are many hands raised to ask specific questions on the guidelines and the different aspects, including vouchers, consumer rights, in the second press conference. Let's see if we have a certain number of questions, perhaps more on the economic dimension of this. I move to Susanna Freixes.
Thank you, but I still have a question on vouchers, actually. I would like to understand, sorry, if a company decides that it will only give this money back to a customer, for instance, in 2 years' time, is it still okay? That's my concrete question. And you're saying that, of course, we cannot have crowds, but should we expect crowds inside the planes? Because we don't see here, or at least I don't see here a clear recommendation for empty seats. So I'd like to understand for aviation, what is your recommendation? And just one last question, because we saw Greece suggesting that actually passengers or tourists should be tested 74 hours earlier the traveling, and we don't see any kind of recommendation in this sense. So this is something that for the Commission is totally not feasible. Thank you.
Well, let me give you short answers just as a precursor to my colleagues who will be coming here. First, in 2 years' time, that is not what is supposed to happen. If you want to have your money back, when you have the right to get your money back, that's the first thing. Second, on airlines, we give the guidance as to how, from a health point of view, that you can still fly safely, where you cannot observe a distance, that you then use different kinds of protective equipment, masks in particular, and of course that you use the ventilation system to its utmost use. On the question of testing before at borders, what we have learned from the health professionals in this case is that you do not have evidence to say that this is a secure way to know that people may not have been infected or have not been infected after they have taken the test, which is why it is not part of our recommendations.
Thank you. We will take 2 last questions before moving on to the next press conference. Je passe la parole à Christian Spielmann.
Oui, bonjour. Ma question est pour Monsieur Breton sur l'ouverture des frontières et plus spécifiquement sur la France. Je sais qu'aucune décision n'a encore été prise par le gouvernement français qui doit se prononcer le 15 juin, mais on sait que traditionnellement, en juillet et en août, on a des grandes transhumances. Or, il se trouve que la France est un pays avec 7 frontières, qu'elle est traversée de part du nord au sud. Beaucoup de gens du nord voyagent en voiture pour gagner l'Espagne, le Portugal, l'Italie. Et on sait que la situation épidémiologique en France est très distincte. C'est-à-dire qu'en fait, on a 2 zones très touchées, qui sont le Grand Est et la région parisienne. Si jamais la France devait retarder l'ouverture de ses frontières justement à cause de cette situation épidémiologique, est-ce qu'on peut envisager des contournements? Est-ce qu'il faut attendre que l'on ouvre totalement toutes les frontières, ou est-ce qu'on peut imaginer simplement bloquer, réserver avec certaines régions? Comment est-ce qu'on peut imaginer cette mécanique d'ouverture de frontières avec un pays qui a ses spécificités? Et ma deuxième question est plus précise pour Madame Vestager. J'avoue franchement que je serais très intéressé de pouvoir aller visiter une exposition en Suisse qui va terminer la fin du mois de juillet. Donc on est la fin du mois de juillet, on est en mai. Je voudrais savoir si je peux faire ma réservation en toute tranquillité ou s'il vaut mieux que j'attende les derniers moments. Merci.
Je vais répondre à la première question. Je pourrais presque aussi répondre à la seconde, mais je laisserai Madame Vestager parce que sur la première, vous avez raison. La France est un des grands pays touristiques de l'Union européenne, mais pas uniquement, évidemment. Et la France accueille beaucoup de touristes qui ne sont pas des citoyens français ou des résidents français. La France est aussi souvent traversée, notamment pour aller par exemple en Espagne, qui est un deuxième grand pays touristique, même le premier du reste d'Europe, depuis il y a 2 ans. Vous avez vu du reste que la décision des autorités espagnoles, selon les recommandations des autorités de santé, et j'insiste là-dessus, aujourd'hui, c'est que lorsque un voyageur, un touriste arrive en Espagne, il doit être mis en quarantaine, quinzaine, pendant 15 jours, dans un endroit spécifique, avec évidemment la désignation du lieu où il se trouve, et ce pendant 15 jours. C'est comme ça aujourd'hui. Je ne sais pas si ce sera le cas cet été, mais c'est le cas aujourd'hui. Vous avez vu en revanche que la France semble indiquer, et vous avez déjà vu ça puisque vous suivez évidemment ces sujets, que en ce qui concerne l'accueil des résidents non français qui voudraient venir en France, il n'y a pas cette demande qui est demandée par exemple par les autorités espagnoles. Donc encore une fois, cela dépend évidemment des situations épidémiologiques donc de chacun des États membres. Donc aujourd'hui, il est absolument, on ne peut pas répondre à votre question. Il va falloir suivre évidemment tout ça de façon. C'est pour ça que je disais que c'était dans ma présentation initiale, c'était un ongoing process. Bien sûr, aujourd'hui, on vous présente des protocoles, on présente des recommandations qui ont été faites après de très nombreuses, de multiples interactions avec tous les États membres, avec tous les acteurs du monde du tourisme. Mais nous savons que ces protocoles vont progressivement évoluer, s'adapter. C'est comme ça qu'il faut comprendre évidemment ce que nous présentons aujourd'hui. Donc la réponse à votre question, c'est que sur la France, comme vous l'avez vu, il n'y a pas de restriction quand vous êtes un citoyen qui du reste ne dépend pas uniquement de l'Union européenne mais aussi de Schengen, comme vous le savez, c'est la position y compris donc pour les Suisses. Donc vous pourrez venir en France sans cette obligation de quarantaine. Voilà, d'autres pays l'imposent encore. Donc voilà ce qu'on peut dire aujourd'hui sur cette question. Je laisse la deuxième question beaucoup plus difficile, la réponse, parce que alors là, à Madame Vestager, Madame l'exécutive vice-présidente, mais elle est là aussi pour les questions difficiles.
Well, that is obviously one of the most difficult questions are those who seems to be the easiest one, because I don't know the answer to your question, because I don't know what they are thinking and planning in Switzerland. Two perspectives. One is, of course, that a lot of museums either prolong their exhibitions or they postpone the opening of exhibitions. I myself happily took a voucher to be able to come back to Paris to see the big exhibition in Grand Palais on Pompeii, because obviously that couldn't open and we couldn't come during the confinement. So you could hope that they would do that in Switzerland. And the second perspective is, of course, that some of us may not be able to go to the shows that we wanted to see, the exhibitions that ran out and we couldn't go there. I think much more important is to recognize all the many people who now see businesses that they have built over decades just to crumble. And this is, of course, why we have this drive to say if it can be done safely, if each and one of us ourselves can take an informed decision as to whether we will travel or not, well, then we should do it. But we all take a risk. We do our utmost to minimize that risk. We see how governments, businesses, regional governments, they do their best to minimize the risk, to make sure that we can travel healthy and safely. But we all have to take our own informed decision. And I myself very much hope that we will open up. I have the same discussion, I think, as many of you have over the dining tables. Can we go this summer? Where can we go this summer? Because after this confinement, we need a break, and all the many, many people working in tourism, they are eager to welcome us back.
Thank you very much. We'll take one last question from Veronika Filitz from ORF. Veronika, press your microphone. You have muted it on your side. Okay. Then if that doesn't work, we will take one last question from Paula Tama.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead, Paula.
Hi, thank you. My question is for Vice President Vestager. To which countries has a letter of formal notice been sent over infringement of passenger rights, please?
Oh, I am sorry. I should have brought that list. I don't know. We can provide you with information about this question after this press conference.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you to both our members of the college for their presence today. We now move to the second press conference, so stay tuned. Thank you.
Thank you.